my greetings.
Well met.
Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to episode 293 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, May 27th in the evening, Memorial Day weekend here in the States. From Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Kerrison, California, we got Bodicus.
Yep.
From Undercity, Pennsylvania, we've got the celebrity herself, Edelweiss.
Hello, hello.
And from where you are the listener, we're so glad to have you. We're supported directly by you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to find out how you can support us, receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/coinconcede. Also support us by leaving an iTunes review. Totally free, really helps other people find the show. And big thanks to our newest patron, Leaf. Leaf, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that's left reviews as well. We definitely appreciate it, and we read those out in the bonus episode if you haven't heard them before. All right. Let's jump right into Life and Ladder here. Bodicus, I like what you wrote down.
Yeah, so I switched a couple cards to match the VS Miracle Rogue list and went something like 21-7 to Legend. I think it was a little less than that, but it was like a really insane win rate to Legend. Deck felt good. I like it a lot. And then I hit Legend and I started messing around with like Corrupt Priest and yeah. I don't know. I was just looking for other stuff to play. Been playing a decent amount of Wild too, just like jamming games with the old Boofree Mage and Nonsense Rogue. And so I kind of get the thought behind or the reasoning why people play off meta stuff by doing that. Because it's kind of fun to be able to play a game and not really expect to win because you're not playing the most powerful thing you can be playing, but then you win sometimes and it feels pretty good. I get it to an extent. I don't think I'd ever have that be the only thing that I play is like off meta stuff, but it's kind of fun to play. Maybe I guess you could call it like suboptimal lists and
Goofy
still
stuff,
do okay. Yeah.
Bodicus, let's be clear, I had a fantastic run with Odd Rogue when that was a thing. I play off-meta decks, but sometimes you just gotta jam what's good and, build up your confidence again.
Yeah, I mean, I like winning a lot, and so as long as I'm winning, then I'm pretty happy. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of playing a little bit. Still playing a ton of Genshin Impact, and I mostly just like sit back and farm that while watching GTA roleplay streams. That's like my life right now, is just farming and watching GTA roleplay.
2021 is a weird time. Yeah.
I'd say that.
I've heard GTA roleplay is kind of fun, but I haven't. It's not a rabbit hole that I have gone down yet.
There's a ton of avenues of different content to watch. It's kind of like watching it's almost like watching a live action drama, kind of.
Or like D&D with different perspectives.
Yeah, D&D if it was set in like a real world atmosphere type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to go through what you said in order, Miracle Rogue is dope, and it is, like, I kept playing around with all sorts of different decks in Standard until I started playing that one, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep playing this one. Because it's really enjoyable, not just the Octobot draws, not just the field contact draws, but, like, you get to be kind of an aggro deck sometimes, and kind of a combo deck sometimes, and you just get to draw a lot of cards, and you get to do scammy things with Wand Thief, and Prize Plunderer is one of the best cards in the format. I just like doing all those things. Plunderer feels...
It's just like a rogue deck, right?
Yeah.
It's a deck that does some random stuff and then goes face for a ton of damage and kills your opponent. Like, your win conditions are different, instead of the Leroy win condition, you have an Alex win condition, and instead of eviscerates, you have wicked stabs. And then like it's got a little bit more random card generation than the old versions of it, but I don't know, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy, I think Vanessa Van Cleef was just like a super good replacement for Edwin, because it scams but not nearly as bad as Edwin, whereas like Edwin, sometimes you just played an 8/8 on turn 2 and just won the game instantly, and other times it was kind of just a dead card, whereas Vanessa has a decent amount of play to it and is almost always just going to be good because your opponent plays good cards, so you just take those.
Yeah, it's dynamic and replayable, right? It's different each game, and because the average card quality in Standard is so high right now, it's pretty easy to like. Sometimes it's pretty rare to grab like a conditioning, right? No one end of turn conditionings. But it would be nice if you do, and a lot of times they end on a Librum of Wisdom that's not discounted, so you can't really do much there. But sometimes they have a big Haymaker play, and then you're like, that sounds fun, I'm going to do that too. And yeah, I definitely like how dynamic the card is, and the deck doesn't generate a ton of randomness, but when it does, you really notice it. Though, let's be honest, I want to have like a Scooby-Doo mock-up where they take off the mask from Wicked Stab and it was Eviscerate all along, and it would have gotten away with it if not for those meddling kids. It's the same card. It's the same.
I mean,
it's
in a lot of cases
better.
it's better. Yeah, it's usually better.
I get hit for 6 from that card a lot of the time.
Yeah, that does come up a lot. But I agree that Edwin was kind of
deck
boring.
You're playing against mostly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Edwin, I have been playing a little bit of Wild as well. And playing Get Meowth posted a combo rogue. Where it is the standard Miracle Rogue list with all the gross wild cards. I did make a turn to 14/14 Edwin. That was enjoyable. I won that game. But the thing about Wild, and so it's kind of like what you're talking about with Corrupt Priest, and kind of like with off-meta decks and Wild, that when you have to work really hard to make up for the fact that you're behind all game because your cards are kind of questionable, and then you barely lose, that doesn't feel great. Some people are more wired for playing janky stuff and relishing the wins as opposed to struggling with the losses. I am not that person. I tried a bunch of different decks. Fino posted a Wild Alignment Druid because nobody likes Celestial Alignment more than that man does. And I tried it and I instantly lost every game I played with it, and I kept drawing my 4-mana 5/4 taunts or whatever, and it felt terrible. And then I switched to it was late at night. I shouldn't have. It wasn't a tilt swap, but it was just a bad idea. I was looking for interesting shaman decks. And there's this very, very strange combo overload wild shaman that I found where Spirit of the Frog draws you into Finders Keepers from a 0-mana spell, usually Lightning Bloom or Zap. Finders Keepers, 1 mana, discover a card with overload 1. Then that gets you the Lava Shock. And so you super overdraft the bank account, and then you Lava Shock to completely clear it all out. And then you end the game with your 4-mana spell that you curve into is Vivid Spores. So you end the game with Arcane Giant, Snowfury Giant, Vivid Spores. It worked out approximately never. Never one time. It got close a couple times, but then Ice Block stopped me. And I'm like, why am I not just playing Kingsbane Rogue? And then I played Kingsbane Rogue and won 3 games in a row and went to bed. So it's... I want to be the kind of person that is okay with almost getting there, but I hate working harder because I'm playing worse cards and then losing because of it. It's an adjustment.
So I'm going to say something that might be a bit controversial, and for all the Wild players about to listen to this, keep in mind I barely play Wild. I probably don't have a good multiplier in there, and I'm not high rated. But I think that Wild would be a worse format if it were popular, or if it were way more popular.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's obviously popular, people enjoy it, lots of people play it, but like when you compare the numbers to how many are in Standard, there's a very significant gap. And I think that if Wild were popular and competitive, and most people were playing just whatever the most broken deck was, I think it'd be less fun for the majority of people to play. Because I think that's what happens a lot with Standard, is that maybe it's not as competitive as it's been before in terms of making it onto professional circuits and whatnot, but obviously there's still a lot of players, and a lot of the decks kind of, you when Secret Paladin's the best deck, you just play against that a lot. Whereas Wild, there's so much to do, and there's like less people, so the best decks are less known. It feels like you can kind of play a lot more variety, and I play against a much wider variety than I ever have in like Standard.
Yeah. The games I've been playing, thanks to my adventures with Overload Combo Shaman, I have been playing in the Diamond 5 bracket with I don't have a rank multiplier there, so I've been playing just against people that are chilling at Diamond 5. There's a lot going on. Played against an even mage earlier, which was pretty sweet, where they Potion of Illusion.
You can do Wildfire. That's great.
Yeah. They Potion of Illusion, the Reckless Apprentice, and the Ice Walker, which is the 1/3 where your hero power freezes enemies, and I was Kingsbane Rogue. So they froze my face, which almost beat me, except I had Eviscerate and they were at 3, so whatever. But like, it was almost good enough. And there's a lot of almost good enough, and then I was playing the almost good enough, and then I was losing to the other almost good enough. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff I've seen. I saw a Highlander Beast Druid that was playing Living Seed on purpose. Like, there's all kinds of things that you can try out there. If you want to do a thing your way, it is the place to do it. But I agree with you, Bodicus. The format would not hold up to more data and scrutiny and optimization, because there are some pretty clear outliers. The Vicious Syndicate report, now they come out about at once every expansion or so. That's about as much they have the data. And usually they say, hey, we look at the data. This one deck is very clearly broken and should be the thing you play. Before the Crab Rider nerf, it was hand buff Paladin. And it was like 57% win rate globally or something completely insane. Now they nerfed it and it's not quite in the same spot. So we're back to Reno Priest and Dark Lair and whatever. But the joy of Wild is that people play what they want to play. But I don't think the format would hold up, like you said, to more scrutiny, more data, and more clarity as to what the powerful strategies are. Yeah, I've been playing some of that. I'm hovering in the 200s, like I think I'm like 270 or something on NA ladder with Miracle Rogue, and then like I could play more Standard. I'm just kind of not right now. Just kind of not doing it. Like I'm clear on my quests. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't feel the draw right now. And we know the mini set's coming next week, and so I feel the draw for that. As of right now, clearing the quests and Wild. Gonna see if I get Wild Legend, but I'm not gonna go out of my way for it. And real life has been demanding this week. So on Monday, my manager, who was scheduled for, I had 2 closing managers, so I had the room for one of them to call out, but she calls and she's like, hey, I'm really not doing too hot, and to spare you all the details, listeners, gastrointestinal distress, was not really able to leave the bathroom at a frequent level. I'm like, yeah, stay home. On Sunday, before she came to work, she got a COVID rapid test because she was concerned, hasn't gotten the vaccine yet. Rapid test was negative. PCR test came back, she doesn't have it, but just had stuff going on. So I'm like, hey, stay home. She was the closing manager the next day, and I was the opening manager. So I came home and I told my wife, there is a chance I will need to stay late tomorrow, in which case I will take Wednesday off, but just be prepared, because I'm preparing myself now. And I talked to Itinerant Wizard, who had a coaching schedule, and was like, hey, I may not be home tomorrow. And checking with her around 3 o'clock, she's like, yeah, that's still going on. So I'm like, okay, you stay home now. So left my house at 9:45, got home at just after 2 a.m. Was a long day. Wednesday. For those of you that are unaware of my computer saga, here is an additional entry. Wednesday, I sleep for a while. I wake up at 1 o'clock. I go to play this cool game I'm going to talk about in a second. And about 20 minutes in, my computer reboots 12 times. Like, will not get through the process, just flashes a black screen and reboots. I'm going to spare you all the technical details, listeners. Rest assured, I have investigated. I'm very technical. I have replaced a bunch of parts. It is now stable. I am pretty sure the problem was the power supply, but I replaced the CPU and motherboard just to be sure. So far, I'm knocking on wood, but I'm not saying anything else because fate is not without a sense of humor. So today...
This makes twice in...
A month.
How long?
Close to a
As
month.
many months?
Yeah.
1 month.
But my reformat and reinstall was so fast because I had all the backups still, and I knew what I was doing with them. So it to get Windows back up and running, it only took me like a couple hours. Rebuilding my PC, tearing everything out, and putting a new motherboard, and blah blah blah. That was unpleasant, but got it done. Figured it out. Been 24 hours so far. Played some Hearthstone. It's fine. Recorded some stuff. It's fine. Played some Hades just to make sure. It was okay. No slowdown. No reboots. So far, so good. And if anything else breaks, it's got to be a gremlin because there's no original part left in that computer. And I have backups on backups on backups, so I'm not worried about it. But there was one other cool game that I found. Well, not found. The developer sent me a copy. Clarifying. I guess I'm an influencer. I don't know. But it's a game made by one person. It's called Vault of the Void. And it is a game designed for people that really like playing card games. Because I would say that it's Slay the Spire, where every class is as hard as Defect or Watcher, or harder. Like, it's very complex. Every card does something, but it's a game with a lot of mechanics that make sense to people with a lot of investment in card games that pay attention to it. It took me a few runs to really get the hang of it. Very enjoyable right now. It's early access. It's made by one person. It doesn't have the visual polish that you would expect from a AAA title, but the mechanics are fun. So if you are a highly invested card gamer looking for something else to do, I do recommend it. Vault of the Void. Cool game made by one person, Josh Bruce. It's sweet. Probably going to play some more of it. Well, I talked for a while. Edelweiss, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I have been reveling in the nostalgia that is Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. For those perhaps unfamiliar, this was a game that came out for PlayStation 2 and I believe perhaps original Xbox. So very old game. It had local co-op, which was super fun. It's kind of a hack and slash RPG kind of game. So, whereas Divinity is tactical, this is more like Diablo, but it's very linear. It's got 3 acts. Even honestly, the loading screen is like Diablo 2. It's like the words loading with the fiery background behind the letters. It's just pure nostalgia. It definitely should not have cost what they priced it at, but they know how to get you. And I didn't feel like waiting for a sale or something. So even though it probably should be 20, it was 30. But totally worth it. Reliving my childhood. I'm hoping to actually, rope my sister when I visit her for Memorial Day weekend to play some local co-op for a bit. We'll see. But yeah, it's been a blast. This is the kind of game where your options for characters, you don't build a character. It's just like human archer, dwarven fighter, or elven sorceress.
Yeah, you pick pre-made classes, and that's what you get.
And the elf is a woman. Like that's just how it was. Coming out in June is going to be D&D Dark Alliance, and that's probably going to be a $60 game. That's, it'll be new, very much in the flavor of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, of Champions of Norath, and it is going to be using the characters from the Icewind Dale trilogy, probably the most known character from the Forgotten Realms, the D&D universe, Driss Duerden, the good drow elf, good dark elf.
He's also going to be in Magic, like, around
also going to be in
period.
Magic. Yeah.
D&D's going nuts with the licensing. Good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, Forgotten Realms is just like its most popular IP, and they're just all in.
Yeah.
So you'll get to play as Drist, Wolfgar, Bruenor, or Catti-brie. So that's going to be awesome. No local co-op, but it will have online co-op. So I'm hoping to get like a group of friends, maybe my brother, to play that one together. Just super into Dark Alliance. I'm hoping that we'll get Dark Alliance 2 remaster as well. And yeah, that because I had tons with that. It's a great series, and it's nice to just chill with some hack and slash, right? You know, it's a very relaxing mode of gameplay. So I've been like playing that while watching Patra play Breath of the Wild for the first time, and those have been some chill nights. In terms of Hearthstone, I tried out Control Warrior today, Luna Love's deck list. It feels good, but it definitely requires a depth of matchup knowledge, and that you just sort of need to build up. I started with a very negative win rate when we passed the 500 mark after a while, but it took some time to figure out how you're supposed to play each matchup, and you know, when's the right time to Bulwark, when's the right time to Scoundrel against various classes, what thing to Scoundrel for. For example, it occurred to me only after I Scoundreled for the wrong thing against a Paladin that I should have taken Oh My Yogg, even though it gives them one, because I can use the Oh My Yogg to proc their Oh My Yogg. It's like I get a free thing to activate it with. Plus, it's one less draw, like deck thinning thing they can get off of sword. So, yeah, it's Scoundrel is very skill testing to play.
What I found most difficult about Control Warrior is that you realize the thing you did 10 turns ago was a mistake 20 minutes into the game. And so,
yeah,
like,
totally.
You get to the end of the game, you're like...
I kind of love that.
If you're streaming, I get it, because you need to spend the time anyway. If you are not streaming, and you find out that you committed to a 20-minute game, and after 10 minutes in, you should have stopped playing, but you didn't know that you messed up. It's a different kind of time commitment. Different kind of thing.
All right. Fair enough. I also had Wicked Good and NJO in the chat, and so they were kind of helping me out since they're more frequent control players.
You used to be a control player back in the day, you know.
That is true.
That was your jam for a
I've been
long
off it
time.
for a while.
Yeah. Good. We reformed you.
or reverted me, because I had to play Red Deck Wins when I played Magic. It's all I could afford.
You didn't have to. You got to. Is Light at the Stage still on standard?
It is not, no.
That card's good.
There are other cards, but yeah, Scoundrel feels like it maybe doesn't need to be a 5/5.
No, it probably doesn't.
It's questionable whether its Battlecry is a downside that warrants being a 4-mana 5/5. I don't know. I guess it's only slightly better than Yeti, but it always feels like it's a little bigger than it should be.
But you're only playing it in control decks. I'm not really...
yeah, no, that is true. Yeah. That is true.
If we get to the point where the aggro decks are playing it, yeah, we can probably do something about that. But right now it is just in decks that want to give you something so they know what to kill next. And that's, you know, definitely a different scenario, where it's nice to have the bigger body because you're going to value trade with it a couple times.
Well, right, and that's what I mean. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it could be a 5/4, right? Just so it... Because it often feels like, even against aggro, you're playing something like rather large on curve, and so, you know, against something like Rush Warrior, you play this big body down, and then you pick up something like Athletic Studies that's going to give you removal, or you take like Warmaul Challenger. Like, often even against aggressive decks, you just take the thing that is not useful for them against you because you don't play threats, and is useful for you against them. That's not always going to happen, but oftentimes you're able to do that.
Yeah, it's a card that I'm glad that is starting to see exploration because it is an interesting design, very skill testing. For
sure. And cool turns off as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we will jump into the news. You'll notice that in the Life and Ladder section, there was not a lot of time spent on Hearthstone. I think the entire community right now is just really excited about what's coming next week, as we found out today, Wailing Caverns. But also, I expect this week's episode is going to be... We're going to focus more on retrospectives and all that, and upcoming news. But I think the Barrens meta has kind of run its course a little bit. It's got a little bit less of a draw, at least to us. So, that's why we're talking about other games, which are also cool, because we strongly recommend when Hearthstone lacks allure for us in any given way, play something that does, so you don't burn yourself out. All right, let's jump right into the news here.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right, so news this week. Obviously, the big news of the week is that the mini set is coming. It's going to be here next week, and the reveals start tomorrow. We were going to try to potentially record tomorrow, but it wasn't going to work out so well, so we'll get to talk about all the cards next week, and probably even maybe talk a little bit about how some of them play, which will be cool. It is the same price as the previous expansion. It's $15 US or 2K gold for quote unquote 66 cards, but it's 35 total new cards. It's 66 if you add up every new card as 2 except the legendaries, which is an interesting way to
that does weird
promote
me
it,
out
but
that it's phrased that way. It feels a little like, oh look, tons of new cards, but then it's still just the 35. I don't know. Like, technically, you can have 66, but in terms of actual text, it is 35 unique. So yeah, that wording kind of threw me for a loop as well.
I have no idea what a better wording would look like. Just absolutely no idea.
I mean, it's 35.
35 new cards.
So it's
I guess it just depends how you think.
The way they said it in the tweet is the mini set includes 35 unique cards, which can also all be obtained from Forest and Barrens packs. The entire 66 card set includes 4 legendary cards, 1 epic card X2, 14 rare cards X2, and 16 common cards X2. I don't think you're going to get better than that in a 280 character tweet.
Yeah, no, I guess with that framing, it just feels like I probably would call it a 35 card set because there are 35 unique cards.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I suppose
and I
what
also
they mean is if you buy the set,
That's
you
where
are
it gets
getting
complicated. Yeah.
66. Yeah, because you're getting 2 copies of
Because
certain
they
cards.
give
So,
you the cards,
yeah.
and they don't normally
Yeah,
sell people
alright.
cards. Yeah. I don't know.
Talking it out, it makes more sense, but it was just kind of threw me off because I had that moment of, oh wait, are there more cards in this set than were planned? Are they actually given?
Yeah, because the tweet before it is the entire 66 card set will be obtainable from the shop for $15 or 2,000 gold. And it's like, wait, so there's a lot more, but then they clarify that the mini set includes 35 unique cards. And you could also just say the entire set includes 4 legendary cards, 1 epic card times 2. Like, you don't have to say 66. It just, when you say like 35 unique cards and then 66 card set, it's slightly confusing, but overall not a huge deal, I don't think.
What I'm reading here is that whoever is making the PR tweets for Blizzard is tired of getting actually'd by people that misread things out of context and wanted to make sure there was no chance that anyone would be like, wait, so do we not get all the cards? And went super deep on the details.
I'm fairly convinced there's no winning in the social media sphere, so regardless of what they tweeted, it would have some form of scrutiny against it.
That's also probably true. Like we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. But
2 points
still,
to
it's going to
Botticus.
be cool, and we get a mini set, or we get reveals tomorrow. I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to be. Well, not kind of. I'm very interested to see what they're going to be because I have no idea what direction they could take the cards. Like sometimes I'll have an idea of a card that I think would be good for the meta, but I have no idea what they could do that would make things like that would give support to an archetype. Like this archetype really needs this kind of card. I don't really know what that is.
I've got the answer. Card draw.
Okay.
For every archetype except Miracle Rogue, which has enough / too much. Every other archetype could use more card draw. That's it. That was the tweet. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. Also, The reveal period is maybe slightly longer than the last one, and I know it's over the holiday weekend. I feel like they could probably give us 2 weeks of reveals, right? I don't know why it's still so compressed.
I feel like we've asked for this before, but I believe Iksar's response is that they want to keep the hype for it relatively high, so they've been condensing their reveal schedules significantly. I'm less interested in the duration of the reveal season and more how they get revealed. I just think that you have so many creators out there that maybe deserve is the wrong word, but have earned the right to be able to give a reveal. And I'm not talking about us specifically, just in general. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and it means a lot to people to get card reveals, and it's a really cool way to highlight people who invest a lot into the game. And it'd be cool to give those out to a lot of people. And but also there's kind of the idea that there are so many incredible creators like Amazing LP who create these videos that are kind of dwarf everybody else's card reveals. So maybe that like it doesn't look as good for people who don't have as much ability to invest into like an amazing card reveal, or that's not where necessarily their talents lie to be able to give like an incredible card reveal.
I don't know. I feel like their efforts have shifted lately more towards, instead of rewarding people that have it, of boosting people that don't. Because Hearthstone doesn't really need the notoriety of, if Regis Kilbin makes a video about a reveal card, Regis is amazing. Nobody new is going to stumble into the game because of that video. It's more of a tool that Blizzard can use to boost creators as opposed to a tool that Blizzard needs to keep marketing on their game. And their strategy for so long had been to give it to the haves and not the have-nots. And I wonder if that's going to shift going forward and maybe empower some smaller creators. Because a card reveal, it's some work. But you can also make something fun for not a lot of money. And then Amazing LP is still amazing. But, I mean, you can only get one of those per expansion. That thing takes months. So, like, it's going to be a while. But you can give it to smaller streamers. I wonder if that's something they would look into. Because I bet it would be a really nice thing for, a really nice way for them to enable people to grow by just driving some traffic there.
Yeah, I think of it more as like a gift that they can give to people that maybe doesn't cost them as much as actually just giving them stuff. But I mean, the amount of work and effort it takes to coordinate all of that and make sure that stuff doesn't get leaked and all of that stuff might be not worth the amount of time and effort it takes to go through something like that.
Yeah. I did like the cute little video that they did. I thought that was cool. The mercenaries characters really have great like personalities. Shout outs to my boy Guff Rune Totem. Guff is the best. Yeah. We're all pretty excited about this, and yeah, we have a show next week and the patch will be out. Cool.
That's wild.
No, standard. Well, both, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I feel a little disappointed in myself because I meant to have like my own personal mini set like designed by now, but I wasn't able to put that together. We've had a few things going on, but in some sense it's kind of cool because I can continue with the theming that I already was going to do anyway, which would be different than the one I did, and sort of compare. Because I was thinking Crossroads, which is like a central part of the Barrens.
I'm curious to see your set too. All right, what else we got, Bot?
So with the good news of the mini set also comes some slightly less good news. Maybe even some people will consider this bad news, but there will not be a BlizzCon this year. Womp womp. kind of all, I think, saw this coming for the most part. BlizzCon is not something that you can plan quickly, and even though some things are starting to open up again in the US, definitely not going to be enough time to get together a full BlizzCon and have it be as epic as BlizzCons are. I'm going to take a guess that we will probably have a BlizzCon next year. Hopefully everything will be back to maybe not normal, but in a state where we can have a BlizzCon next year. But unfortunately this year, it's just not going to be able to happen.
Yeah, they said in the article, but we don't want to let too long go by before we connect with everyone again. So in the meantime, we're planning a global event for the early part of next year, combining an online show along the lines of our recent BlizzCon line with smaller in-person gatherings, and we'll share more as our plans come together. So the thing that I love the most about BlizzCon is how global it really is, and international, and like Bodikus and I, along with my wife and two dudes from Germany, did a 5 Waycrest. I think it was a Waycrest. In BFA, we did a Mythic Plus Key, and and got a signed poster. Barely came in under time. I blame the UI. I was bad. I was tanking. It was whatever. No, it was a 10. It was a 10. That's right. Pretty sure. It doesn't matter. And so
it was a long time ago. I don't remember.
Yeah. And it's also very important to note, well, first of all, domestically, COVID's not over. But internationally, it's really not over. Really, really, really not over. So I don't want to take a US-centric view here. They had to cancel this, and running it would be a very, US-centric decision that would have some pretty significant consequences on the global community, where people would take unnecessary risks because they really wanted to go, or they would be precluded from going, or both. And yeah.
To do something like proof of vaccine would have been its own can of worms as well. There was that requirement for getting a ticket. So I totally respect the decision to just say, hey, wait a year.
Yeah. Let's just all chill. And also, it's May. 5.5 months to plan an event like BlizzCon is unrealistic at best. Impossible is the better word. And also, Blizzard had a bunch of layoffs in their live events team because they went for a year and a half without them. So, yeah, let's just chill on this one. I'm hopeful that there is some kind of smaller scale event that people can travel to in their own countries, that maybe they have them in a few places around the globe or whatever, where it's possible to connect. I don't know.
Well, with that, we can continue in our Naga sandwich, as the Squelch does, with the good news, good. And then, the best good, the not so good, and the absolute best good. Wait, best good's last, right?
Which is where we're going right now.
Right. Which is Edelweiss got an article on the main site.
Hooray!
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this, Edelweiss, for people who haven't seen it yet?
So, a little while after, I forget exactly the time frame, but after the whole uprising is too strong a word, movement
kerfluffle
that took place post announcement of the invitational and the very low percentage of women represented as part of their initiative to sort of, raise more people up and have more representation. Deck Tech messaged me and said, hey, we want to do this interview. It's going to be part of a series of sort of blog posts trying to display lesser known members of the community. And I did not realize mine was going to be the first one to go up. Maybe said that, but I don't remember that being said. I thought it was sort of like many interviews were being done, and we'll see whose will end up being first. So it's kind of cool that I get to start out the series. But yeah, there will be more, which is pretty cool. And having already been kind of open about certain things, we did end up talking about some of the identity stuff, which still a little scary. But I think fortunately, most of the people that were like negative about the article were negative in such a fashion that they would not read the article. So nothing was really personally negative from stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, the comments I saw before I blocked people were, why are they posting this and not the mini set or something like that.
Right. And then, of course, we got mini set news
right
away.
Mission accomplished, trolls. Enjoy your block.
I did think mini set news was going to be taking a little bit longer. I thought we would be getting it a couple weeks from now, not a week from now. But
yeah. Well, congratulations. I mean, it's a great article. You were able to talk about all sorts of stuff. Thanks for the shout out. And
yeah,
Thank
had
you.
to shout out, of course, the Concede show, which has been such a big part of the last year for me, and then also, my team over on Swagoy, and also THL, which has been a blast. So
and THL's having a pretty fun Pride Month right now as well, celebrating. So yeah, it's just kind of nice that the community seems to be making pretty active effort, both officially and third party, of just being a little bit more visible and accepting, and correcting something that should have been this way a long time ago. And also, I think when I think of anyone that has so many different things going on in the Hearthstone world, like you're a team captain, you're a podcast host, you're involved in THL, you're a competitive player yourself, you're an innkeeper. With all this stuff on your resume, I think that they made a really great choice by having you front and center talk about all this stuff and all the different things that you can do in Hearthstone beyond just playing Hearthstone.
yeah. It definitely, it's a huge confidence boost, but also I feel like I've been working on my confidence for the past year and a half, and I don't know, it feels good to sort of have that culminate in something. Because I'm often pretty down on myself.
Well, I think it's going to be hard to keep that going for too much longer. A lot of evidence to the contrary.
We'll see. But yeah, it's gonna be a good year, I think.
It's going to be better than last year. I feel very confident in saying that.
Uh-oh. Let's not jinx it.
No. You're right. All right. Bodicus, go to the next news item quickly.
So, the Iksar AMA happens every week. We're here again and have some pretty cool topics to talk about. The number one thing to mention was they shed a little bit of light on what tournament mode actually was, which it was a kind of a sandbox mode for firesides. Basically, the quote is that, unfortunately, this was actually the core feature of tournament mode. It was largely a tool for fireside gathering groups to run brackets together alongside the fireside functionality we have now. We had plans to expand it, but those went by the wayside when we cut it from the system. We still have all of that UI and code lying around, but unlikely to put any focus on it until at least 2022, as our slate is pretty full, probably fun and full until then.
Proby1, thank you so much for the 10 subs. You're crazy. Well, it makes sense that they canceled this, because if they announced a tournament mode and then said you can run sandbox games at firesides, the entire pro community would have been a disaster for like a month. I think that is insightful.
Even more than it was.
Yeah. I mean, shoving that in the bottom of an article where you're also not nerfing Giggling Inventor was not the best play. The In the Works article had a lot of missteps involved. But Yeah. I think that it was a good choice to not publish this and call it tournament mode, because this is definitely not what we were thinking of as tournament mode. It's a cool thing, and Bytes, of course, was the one that asked about this, and Bytes is going to run some cool events when they turn this code on, but they have to call it something else. Can't call it tournament mode.
And the next topic was about a new mode with potentially rotating sets. Question was, have your team ever discussed a new mode with rotating sets, something like 6 sets, 1 core, 1 latest, 3 wild ones, and a random standard one, and rotate last for every 2 to 3 months? The response was, we thought about it, but I think the audience would be quite small for something like this. Must own a wide variety of old cards and be interested in deck building on regular cadence. The kind of people that would be interested in this are extremely engaged Hearthstone users, which is why I think you hear it talked about often in places with extremely engaged users. I don't think that the audience is there for it to be a permanent feature. Makes sense.
This is something that I think, just the reflection on how much of a cost there is to constant change, it's really something where highly engaged players really like it. And, so people like us that play all the time, like, yeah, let's give more, but even then, we don't keep up with everything in the client anymore. There's so much to do.
I don't know how healthy it is for it to be engaged with the game so heavily, so consistently for extreme periods of time. Like, I think we all have definitely a high engagement, but there are definitely some people, the people that would make the most use out of something like this, that are playing upwards of 6-7 hours a day. I don't know that that generally leads to a super healthy relationship with the game. I think being able to take breaks from it and not feel like you're missing out on a bunch of stuff is also an important part of enjoying Hearthstone.
And I think the people that enjoy sort of middle modes like this, usually, like in Magic, which has sort of in between modes like this, there are competitive events every now and again with that. Suppose we wouldn't call it a mode, but format. So there's additional incentive behind it. I feel like in Hearthstone, with no competitive events for that mode, or it would just end up being different wild, right? It would splinter constructed players once again, and maybe some people would love it and it would be all they would play. Streamers would play it for a bit after it came out, but ultimately the people that wanted to compete would still stick to standard, and you would just have some people that would maybe do this instead of wild, I guess. But if it's rotating, it's in a sense almost more challenging to invest in than wild, even, because you don't know what's going to be in there at any given time. I guess it's sort of similar investment to wild.
Wild is easier though, because like if you go make a Lothab, you can play with Lothab and it will be a good card for 7 years. You can go make a Reno. Wild is a higher spin-up cost, but then like updating a deck that you want to keep playing with those power legendaries, it doesn't change that much from season to season. You don't have to go out of your way to make something new.
Right. Yeah. So a rotating mode would really just, it would kind of be not even just extreme engaged Hearthstone users, but extreme engaged whales who never disenchant anything. Like, yeah. So yeah, Hat, you and I would love this game mode, but I totally understand why they shouldn't make it.
Really, when it comes to constructed, you've got standard and other, and the only way to really take something away, take real attendance out of standard and put it into a different mode, is to support it the same amount, or make something for the really high-end competitive base, but then you end up pilfering the top end of standard ladder, and it becomes a very different ballgame. I don't think the goal right now is to make more constructed game modes, and I think there's a point where you have too many of them. They got to figure it out, but we're probably at the limit for constructed game modes that will get a good audience. And Classic is not dead, but it's exactly where we thought it would be, where if you want to play a bunch of games of Classic in a month, your queue times are not going to be great. And also, if you want that mode to feel more fresh, bad news. That's not gonna happen. So yeah, I think this is insightful from Dean. And he talked about a couple other things. And of course, we post the AMA, the Out of Cards link. Go check out the recap. This is actually his last one for a month, I think. He said that he was taking some time off.
Oh no, our content.
We'll be fine. They're releasing new cards instead. They were
Yeah,
like,
we'll
oh,
have plenty
Dean
to
doesn't
talk
have an
about.
AMA this week. We better reveal some cards. So he did have one more answer that I want to talk about because I asked the question. All right, so what was up with Corridor Creeper? And he gave an excellent response here. So he says, and I quote, okay, so this was totally my fault. It was my first set ever leading the balance team, and I made myself in charge of neutral. It was pretty Wild West back then, so there were only 3 of us doing any playtesting with regularity. Me, Puffin, and Reels. If you think about Creeper's mechanics, we really don't do mechanics that work on both you and your opponent's actions, so for many weeks I just read the card in my hand as getting reduced by my own minions. I thought it was pretty weak, so it was one of those, let's work on archetype balance and we'll worry about tuning this correctly later, probably make it more powerful. And much later in testing, Reels is like, this is pretty busted. What do you think? I start putting it in a dex and we play some, but not enough, and realize it's powerful, but I made the call to let it ride because it seemed interesting enough and motivated token play. Turns out, it was obviously busted, and I should have seen that. Was a little blinded by the fact that we were playing these well-thought-out busted archetypes by the time we were playtesting Jank Corridor Creeper stuff. Anyway, should have listened to Reels, but you win some, you lose some. Good answer.
By token play, they mean you play a pirate in your deck.
By
Because Patches
by
was
token
one of
play,
the most...
yeah, Patches. Also by token play, they meant you play it against decks with minions because you put this in your big Spell Mage deck with Dragon's Fury because you kill a bunch of minions and then you play your Corridor Creeper. It was a miss, acknowledged as such. Also, later in the week, Brode got tagged in response to an Iksar tweet. Actually, in the same AMA. That he was asked what made you choose Jaina, Garrosh, Anduin, etc. as the standard hero portraits. Dean said, well, I wasn't around back then. It was Brode and Dodds. Tagged Brode. And Brode responded with why they picked the original hero. So I'm not going to read every tweet there, but there's a cool article on Out of Cards recapping it. It's all a tweet thread. The original hunter was Hemet Nessingwary. The original priest was Tyrande. The original rogue was Edwin, but they had too many humans, so they went with Valera, who he called relatively unknown. And the original warlock was Cho'Gall, because they said Gul'dan was dead in that timeline. Turns out timelines don't matter so much. They also picked Garrosh over Magni because he wasn't bad yet. He hadn't done anything wrong. Jury's still out on that one, but I think that he took a dark turn. Didn't go so well.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's news. Still waiting. Want to talk about tournaments a little bit? All right. A little bit.
It's the Grand Tournament!
Yo, Grandmasters. There are going to be some elimination matches this week. They're going on right now. Relegation is tight. There are 4 people that will be relegated from Europe and Asia, 3 from Americas. A lot of people fighting to not get relegated. Many players have already announced their retirement from competition. Impact and Casey have both tweeted about it already. I don't know if Tyler announced it, but he is 100% being relegated and is, I'm not going to say hasn't put the effort in, but his results look like he hasn't put the effort in. So it would be a plausible hypothesis. He's definitely just not performing. He only has 1 point to show for his entire season in Grandmasters, which is, not really where you want to be. So week 7 is going on right now. Playoffs will be Friday, June 4th. Just to rewind a little bit, the mini set comes out June 3rd. Playoffs, Friday, June 4th. I ran the numbers. That's one day after. It's one day. Was that on purpose? And what are they gonna do? I assume the GMs have the cards. I assume they have a list of the cards. But I wouldn't want to go into playoffs with just a list of the cards.
So, I don't know that this is a guarantee, but I think it's at least a possibility that they are able to maybe play test with them. I don't know.
I mean, they could push a test build. Like, they all get the super accounts, right? Like, they all get the special accounts, and they're on a separate realm.
You know, the same thing that they do for the theory crafting live streams, they could potentially let the GMs play. But the thing is, like, how many people could you give accounts to play test, right? They would have to play test against each other, so it would be kind of weird in that its own sort of way. Maybe as long as you play test against, you know,
other regions,
teammates you're cool with, or other regions,
yeah.
Like, it works out. I don't know.
I also don't know if the non-playoff GMs get it, because then you could play test against the people that aren't in playoffs.
Yeah, that could work. But yeah, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very bold scheduling choice. It's gonna happen at some point. Like, there's no way to have cards every 2 months and then have this not happen. But the day after is pretty ambitious, and also we really have to hope there aren't bugs. Really have to hope there aren't bugs. Because the track record past few patches, with the exception, I guess, of 20.2.2, the most recent one, no major bugs that I can think of in terms of card functionality. The ones before that, yeah, hit or miss. So, don't know how it works, but we'll find out next weekend, I guess. Going to be a very exciting playoff season because it's going to be all new cards. Also, this is your reminder to check out Hearthstone Esports YouTube content. They have really good stuff. Gia put up a mullet over today on Rush Warrior. So if you want to learn how to play that deck and talk about mulligans for 9 minutes with examples, really great content. As far as qualifiers, Masters Tour Dalaran qualifiers are done. The first day for that tournament, if you were in the US, it starts the night of the 18th. It is the Asia-Pacific time zone. So where I am in the eastern US, the cast goes from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I would assume that is meant to start in the Asia time zones where you're 14 hours ahead of me or so, and it starts at 10 a.m. local time. But it starts, I think, 5 p.m. Pacific. So that's going to be the Asia Pacific Masters Tour. The European players have the worst sleep schedule for this event because the first round starts Central European time, I think, is 6 hours ahead of me. So round 1 starts at 2 a.m. Good luck, Europe. Don't play Priest Mirrors. That's really going to be something. So, check it out. There are no qualifiers this week. Silver Moon qualifiers start next week. The first one being Thursday, June 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Did we learn nothing from doing events the day of the patch? Did we learn nothing? I guess if there are any bugs, we'll find out in qualifiers that night before Grandmasters playoffs the next day. Gonna be a weekend. Gonna be something. So, best deck last week, in terms of performance, was actually Rush Warrior. Some success, success from Paladin, obviously. Surprising success from Face Hunter, and success from Rogue. The winning lineups tended towards Paladin, Rogue, and Warrior. A lot of banned Paladin lineups. A hint of Priest did well. And there were other options that were successful in smaller numbers. Token Druid, Face Hunter, Spell Mage. Much smaller numbers. And ladder. Well, ladder right now is, are you Paladin? Good, you're broken. Can you beat Paladin? Sometimes. Good, you're a decent deck. Can you not? You're not a deck. It's pretty reductive. The most popular deck at Legend is Miracle Rogue because it has very few polarized matchups, has gameplay against everything, very skill testing, very skill rewarding, and can do okay against Paladin. Same with Control Priest. Whereas at most ranked brackets, and even at Legend, the best deck is Paladin by far. No matter which flavor you're playing, the N'Zoth list with Secrets is doing just fine. Secret list is doing just fine. There are secret lists, or Libram lists with secrets. There are Libram lists with no secrets that are starting to run Conviction and Broom. Those are good too, because Conviction is a good Hearthstone card. So, we'll see how that goes next week. Because again, we have a patch in a week. I don't think they're going to do more balance changes, right? They're probably just going to put out more cards?
No, yeah, the cards is in place, and then you reevaluate for balance after a week or two.
I think you're right. I can't tell with this team. I can't tell. Because they do crazy stuff all the time, right? Like,
I mean, this is a crazy thing. Part of why I anticipated mini set coming out a little later is because of the esports stuff.
Yeah. But no.
Well, why would I think that mattered?
I don't know. I wonder if they're going to change a card or something. I wonder if they're going to do something. Alex said in his last tweet that Paladin was stronger than they liked, and I think it would be pretty disastrous for them if Paladin was the best deck again in the 4th meta in a row. But they usually don't do card changes with content. They can't. They can't. Right?
It's not totally unprecedented, right? That when
Yeah,
that
what they did with
change a
Nitro,
card
I
at the
think.
Right. Yeah. So it could totally happen that they tone down Conviction's damage at the same time as releasing the mini set.
Yeah. They would hit a
Because
Paladin card.
It's the same problem, right? Nitro Boost is too much damage. Conviction is too much damage. They were both, honestly, 1-mana fireballs.
Yeah. And chat is also, Noob Swoops reminding us they changed Allura with content too.
Right. Yeah. I think these 1-card changes are the kind of things you can expect to maybe happen with content. And I think toning down Conviction would probably be enough.
Though Dan raises a good point that if we tone down Conviction, we just go back to full Librams. Again, like, they nerfed Paladin twice, and then we went back to the deck that we were playing before the first nerf.
That is true. I sort of forgot that the Libram deck doesn't run Convictions, and that is still definitely a really solid win rate. Yeah, so maybe...
But it's worse, right?
Not enough worse to not be the best deck.
I mean, it's okay to have a best deck.
It is.
Right?
Alex said that Paladin was stronger than they liked. Like, this is all speculation. No one has any idea there's going to be a nerf. I don't think there's going to be a nerf. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
I'm
just
gonna do
like
something.
stronger than we like is fine, but like if you reduce the win percentage like 1%, it's still that still could get within the realm of possibilities. Also, if there's just one Paladin deck you have to worry about, you can start changing cards to deal with it more.
You know what
or
the
make
most
different
played?
choices.
You know what the
I'm
most played Paladin
thinking-
card is? Hand of a Doll.
Sword of the Vault. Oh,
Hand
Hand
of
of
a
it.
Doll.
Yeah. Yeah. You could
If
make
you-
it give like +1/+2.
You take a number away, right? Like, if you want to kill it, you move it to 3. They don't want to kill it.
Eh.
They don't make nerfs like that anymore. Hand
I
of a
like
Doll
Hand of a
is
Doll a
in-
lot.
Yeah, it's in 20.6% of all decks in the format. I don't know. The most played Paladin cards, the top 3, are Hand of a Doll, Knight of Anointment, and First Day of School, which already got nerfed. I don't think they're going to touch that card a second time. I don't think there's a clean way to hit Knight of Anointment. If you make that cost 2, that card is way worse. I don't even know if they're going to do this, but if you want to make sure that Paladin gets worse, you hit Hand of a Doll somehow. But I don't know if they need to make sure of that.
I honestly don't see any Paladins without secrets at this point, so I could see as well doing something like the 3/4 that draws a minion.
Northwatch Commando,
Maybe just
yeah.
put that in line with Sparkjoy cheat, make it a 3/3.
That's a reasonable nerf. I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, Yeah, it makes the play pattern the same, but it just makes it a little worse. That's the kind of nerf they like to do.
I think
I still think conviction, even if it's not in like the in all of the decks, I still think conviction is one of the most problematic of the paladin cards. But that's more of a play experience feeling than a this is the strongest paladin card feeling.
Yeah, but as people are saying, it's not even necessarily in the Libram Paladins. So, yeah, if you want to hit it all with one card, it's either something in Secret Package or Hand of It All.
So you think it's all of Paladin that they think is too strong, or you think that it's that Paladin deck with the higher win percentage that is too strong?
I think it's all of Paladin, right? What is Libram Paladin is the one that most people are playing, right? Secret Librams?
They're both pretty popular.
It's okay. It's Libram or the N'Zoth one, right?
Correct. Yep. And
I
Libram,
think they're both good because Secret Package.
Libram doesn't have to play secrets anymore. The list that Vicious Syndicate posted this week does not play secrets for Libram. It plays convictions and brooms. It's
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it does run conviction, right? And
Alex tweet is Paladin's a little stronger than we'd like, but everything else is hitting on the intentions. If you want to, so the question is, how do you make Paladin worse without killing any of the decks? And so you got to kill a card that goes in all of them, and that means first day, night, or hand. Those are the three options. Because Conviction goes in almost all of them, and it's very efficient, and I would like to see it do +2. But that does just funnel people towards Librams again, and that's the oldest archetype that we have in Standard.
Right. I mean, I could see a world where it's hand and Conviction, or hand and Northwatch, or I don't know.
I could honestly just see a world where I see a world where they don't change it, see how the new cards affect the meta, and go from there.
Yeah, totally. But it does.
That's what I'm assuming. I'm floating it out there because I think that there is a possibility because they've been crazy with this stuff lately, and the numbers of Paladin and the way that we look at this meta, and we're gonna talk about this in Decksplanations. I think there's a chance that they want the story to be different for the second half of the meta. Because Paladin has dominated every meta in Barrens, despite being nerfed directly twice, and you don't want the fourth consecutive meta to have the same story. But we don't have any hint outside of a single tweet from Alec that Paladin's a little stronger than they'd like, that they'd make any changes. It's going to depend on what we see from the cards. But also, if they print cool Paladin cards, they can't make it better. They have to do something about it over the course of this meta, but the question is, do they do it in 2 weeks, do they do it in a month, or do they do it now? I don't know.
Wouldn't it be completely hilarious if, like, they make Dude Paladin stuff, and then Dude Paladin is just the best thing? It's not even the same Paladin.
That would play Conviction, though.
It would play Conviction for sure.
Yeah.
I think the difference with Nitro Boost and Allura is that they were really clear cut. This is the card to hit if you're going to hit one card at the same time as adding new ones. And as we just discussed, there's not a clear hit when it comes to Paladin right now. So
yeah. Well, they made all the clear hits and the deck still bomb. Like,
right.
You can't
sort
do
of
anything
because of that. I think maybe it's a wait and see. I don't know.
Yeah. I could see it either way. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell. Allura was about as obvious as a card nerf has ever been in Hearthstone history. The Nitro Boost, the aggro rogue deck was like, I didn't love the play pattern, and it was very powerful, but it wasn't a format outlier in defining the format. Like, it was just a play pattern that wasn't all that great. Allura was all the bad things. Every bad thing you can have, it was encapsulated entirely in one card.
Allura was Barrens.
Yes, except like
the same treatment.
Except you only had one recruit target in your deck, and it always won the game. Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're in a situation that pressing, but we should talk about it because we're going to wrap up the Barrens meta. Let's go.
So we sort of started this discussion in tournaments, but yeah, Decksplanations this week is just sort of what's up with Barrens? Why do we all feel the way we do? There are a couple outliers of folks who are totally happy with this meta, but in general, I'm finding people are kind of over it, sort of getting bored. I know on my team, we're not super enthused about Priest. We also have like 3 to 4 Shaman mains, so it's a rough time.
Yes. Much like every other period in Hearthstone's history.
But, yeah, so this might be sort of the last show of Barrens meta, at least, not including mini set. So we want to look back at things. Last couple rounds of patches, Paladin has continued to be good. As we just discussed, we hit the highest win percentage cards in the class, and it's still pretty nuts. Still feels really hard to deal with that second Oh My Yogg. Something that's kind of happened is, in spite of Sword not being a 1/3 anymore, people have just decided, well, we can still make sure you have to play around double Oh My Yogg by just running 4 secrets. So I saw secret packages that were just double Galloping Savior, double Oh My Yogg. And so you're still going to have to play around Oh My Yogg twice in the early turns, because it's pretty good odds that you get it if you have Sword. So.
And Galloping Savior is super annoying to play against too.
Well, and in combination with Oh
Yeah.
My Yogg, right? Because you have to test for Oh My Yogg, you have to play a spell. So that's going to be a dead card. And then you play the other spell. And then you either have to end your turn or activate Galloping Savior.
Yep.
It's really rough.
And beyond just the secret package, Paladin has the best early game and probably the best non-control late game, no matter which build you're playing. You can't really play aggro in this format outside of Face Hunter and hope you dodge the Paladins, because that matchup is terrible. We don't have, real aggro decks. We have decks that can win at a reasonable pace if they're uncontested. But when I think of, beyond your Face Hunters, your aggro Demon Hunters of the world, or, I don't know, any kind of aggressive weapon-based warrior, decks that want to hit people in the face and play 1-drops. There's the only deck in the format that's playing Intrepid Initiate is Face Hunter. Seems crazy to me, because that card's bananas.
So, slight story time. I experimented with an aggressive warrior. We're talking, the new 1-drop Frenzy, Guardian Og Merchants, Bone Chewer Brawler, Frothing Berserker. Really wanted to try it out. I threw in the Wind Fury 4-drop. I ended up, thinking about maybe taking it out, but the Wind Fury 4-mana 3/5 elemental, because I had a copy of Nitro Boost Poison and Double Shield of Honor. So sometimes you would get that down and hit them for 1 million. And it felt okay. Sometimes, you would have those pop off turns, but against Priest, they have so much healing and so much discover, they can usually find an appropriate answer. And it's sort of like you have to play super, super hard around Hysteria, because it's hard to kind of come back sometimes after that. And then into Paladin, it was just like, well, I would have a pretty good early game, and it would just not be as good. And that's kind of part of why I wonder if, okay, maybe a 3/3, not a 3/4 for that one for Northwatch Commander. But just the power of going Sword into Northwatch or Sword into Knight of Anointment, Hand of Adal, the curve is so powerful. And then the mid game is nuts as well, with things like Hammer of the Naru. If there weren't other cards that were more pressing to get nerfed, Hammer of the Naru could probably only have 2 charges on that weapon. Because that thing is a 6/6 taunt and 9 damage. There's just a lot going on in Paladin that can shut the door on things. And especially with N'Zoth Pally. Like, you play Hammer of the Naru. Okay, they clear the taunt. Well, now you play a 5 mana 8/8 Divine Shield taunt. And it's just like, game over for an aggro deck. You basically need to win before that point. And Paladin can also run Kazakus, which is a fantastic curve card when you hit it, right? So, yeah, I think on the one hand you've got Paladin, which is the aggro deck that's repressing other aggro decks.
It's kind of aggro. It can be aggro. Like, that's the thing. It can kind of do everything,
okay.
right? Like, you can go Aldor Tenant into Hand of Adal. Like, you're an aggro deck now. Enjoy that.
I mean, it is the most aggressive besides Face Hunter, which is sort of its own category.
I suppose
right?
it is.
Like,
yeah.
What's the other aggro deck? Poison Rogue? That doesn't really feel like that's not an aggro deck, right? But there's no Zoo.
Yeah.
Because you just can't do that right now.
Because it has no good cards.
Like, Rogue feels in some ways like the aggro deck because you're playing Cult Neophytes and you just put a bunch of minions in play to get an early chip damage.
Oh man, those games against Priest where it's turn 1 Prize Plunder, turn 2 Neophyte, you just gotta get him with the 2/1 into the Bloodfin Raptor for pressure. But yeah, like, that's the best we have for aggro. There's not really much going on, and any kind of really low to the ground strategy, you just can't even keep up with first day of school. 3 1-drops. The 1-drops are really good in this format. I've gotten prize plundered from Paladin a lot. My stuff keeps dying to Aug Merchants. Either they rush their own minion or they just hit mine with pings. They get brooms. There's just a lot of good 1-drops in this format, and they get 3 looks in the box. The new card is different, but it's not worse.
So there's just the 1 mana 2/3. The rogue minion.
Oh, Bladed Cultist. Yeah.
Bladed, like, you just get Bladed Cultist sometimes, and it's like, well, that was too efficient.
Yeah. And you know what the best premier early game aggressive threat in the format was? Crab Rider. They nerfed it. And I'm not saying they should have kept it where it was. But I'm saying when you take that away, then your early game just cannot exist. That Crab Rider was what was keeping Libram of Hope from seeing play because it was too slow. And then they take that away.
Right. And it was also what let you have the most aggro Rush Warrior games, right? Because you would drop Parade Leader, and then the threat of Crab Rider was quite real.
Yeah, and you would be able to finish games quickly, or like Rokara. Crab Rider Rokara was really, really nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Rokara is fantastic. Like, if any card is just like a bomb aggro card, it is Rokara. That is an insane snowball legendary.
You played her in Wild yet? In Wild Pirate Warrior?
But
she's disgusting. With the turn 1 N'Zoth's First Mate, turn 2 Sharkfin Fan, turn 3 Rokara, all of my stuff is enormous. Oh. It's filthy. Yeah. Really, really good.
Yeah. But it just, like, that's not good enough because there's, like, I don't know, there's just better early games right now. And Priest has been benefiting the most from the reduced card pool, it feels like. Because if you think about what Priests are doing right now, you've got, okay, one maker pulls you a 1-drop. Your 1-drops are Heal for 5, Renew, which discovers, Draconic Studies, which discovers, Holy Smite, which is removal.
Focused Will.
Okay, yeah, Focus Will is kind of the low roll most of the time.
It's relevant sometimes. You need it sometimes.
But yeah, sometimes you really need it. And then, all right, Venomous Scorpid, that's another discover. Oh, well, sometimes you hit Raise Dead. Well, what does Raise Dead do? It gives you back Venomous Scorpid for more discover. If you miss on any given discover, you can still hit Renew or
Palm Reading.
Or Palm Reading.
Yeah.
to reroll. You've got so many spells, you're now reducing the cost of like your whole hand with the palm reading. It's just become this sort of circular thing where you kind of have to anticipate just extra copies of a whole bunch of stuff, like whatever is going to be good against you. I think the one that can feel the worst at times is extra soul mirrors. I definitely hate going up against those, but you know, extra hysterias will do the trick many times. It's just when you lose to priest, it really feels like, you know, what could I have done there, right? They've just you look at the cards played, and it's just an insane amount of generation, and it feels like, oh, I thought they were saying we were going to get less generation. Well, this is less. There's not a hero power give me a random minion.
And also a lot of these discover cards like Renew and Sethic are both Ashes of Outland cards. As soon as Ashes
Yes,
rotates, it's going to be a lot less. And
No,
for what it's worth, Priest, their win rate is below 50% unless you are in top 1000 Legend. If you're outside top 1000 Legend, the deck is not good enough. It doesn't win half of its games. By the way, if you want to listen to the episode of The Angry Chicken that we did this week, we talked about how to beat Priest Edelweiss. Feel free to tune in. We've got some good advice over there.
I did listen to that.
Yeah.
By the way, this doesn't add to the conversation, but have you ever soul mirrored a Moonfang that got Survival of the Fittest?
I have witnessed this, but I don't play the card Soul Mirror because I don't play the class Priest unless I'm in Wild.
I got two of them last night, and then I put a Apotheosis on it.
Did you win?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good.
They played 2 survivals. It wasn't enough.
Yep. Nope. Yeah, it's Edelweiss. I actually recommend the Flesh Giant Control Priest. I really enjoy right now because it doesn't have to be that grindy. You can go mid-rangey. I know you won't do it, and then you play Control Warrior, and you're like, why do they have time to make all these cards? Because you're not playing an aggro deck. Because you're not killing them. Also,
well, Control Warrior is actually tuned to be good against Priest.
But the efficiency of that matchup, the amount of time that matchup takes, is not. You might win the game, but at what cost?
Keeping a priest from facing someone else for an extended period of time.
Okay. But so anyways, I think this Control Priest is kind of how Priest plays, and Paladin playing big stuff is kind of how Paladin plays. We look at the decks that we had this meta, this expansion so far. We've talked about this almost every show. The gameplay is generally pretty positive, and none of the decks look exciting. What's up with that?
Yeah, I think it's just we've gotten so used to them that it started to just feel very repetitive. Part of it is Paladin, right? No matter what kind of Paladin we're seeing, like Paladin has been good this entire duration, and we had Libram Paladin had been good before in the last meta, before the whole secret package thing. When we started the Barrens journey out, we were getting Penflingered a lot, and that felt very samey. And it's sort of like things are different than when we started out Barrens, but I think in part due to the fact that they're not killing decks with nerfs. We're just sort of like, well, these are the same things, just slightly different.
And there are archetypes we've had before in the game too. It's the Barrens was very much bring the game back to its roots, and it feels like, an expansion that was a real love letter to the original classic. But that means we've got Face Hunter, we've got various mid-range paladins, we've got Control Priest, we've got some, Rush Warrior is relatively new. Spell Mage is perhaps the most novel deck, and also probably why it was so popular, because it was so different. And also, people have been trying to make Spell Mage work for an entire year, and it was like really
bad.
bad For like, Enchantress Flow is a card printed in Ashes of Outland. And I know that people like to complain about it right now, and I'm not going to say that the polarity of the Mulligan win rate is a great experience, but that card's been in Standard for 14 months. And it was terrible for almost all of that.
Yeah.
For almost all of it.
Yeah, it was. I definitely was among those trying to make it work. Occasionally running the quest for like making sure you didn't run out of gas. Also,
yeah.
you know,
Elemental Allies?
fun games. No,
No, come on.
no, that's a side quest.
Oh,
Hack.
no,
Yeah.
oh, no.
No,
Oh,
Mage
no.
Quest. Oh, it was so cool until
It
you
was
played
super
it,
fun.
and then you got your first card, and you realized how bad it was.
And the Discover Pool
I
was so
put-
big back
Talking
then.
about that, it was great.
It was just like, oh man, I remember that card coming out. I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to generate some extra spells, and they're going to be discounted. It's like I'm playing Primordial Glyph, and then you forget that Primordial Glyph you get to discover. And
Yeah.
you click that button, and I got like a blizzard in a matchup where it did not matter and lost instantly. It was not good. I did not have fun, but man, that quest was cool.
I don't know if it would have been too good if it was just actually Primordial Glyph, like if it was Discover or pick from 2 or something. But it would have been better. I would have enjoyed it.
Yes, it needed to be a lot better.
Well, so I get that they very clearly went into making hero power quests. They went into the office to plan the meeting. And the person leading the meeting went up to the whiteboard and wrote, "Don't make Deathstalker Rexar." And they wrote that on the whiteboard and underlined it and left it on the wall until they shipped the set. And if you make Primordial Glyph on a button, well, you know who else
Yeah.
discovered when you pressed a button? Deathstalker
Yeah,
that
Rexar.
was
yeah.
two
I mean,
Discover's
spell is-
hat.
spell
It's
is
like
different
twice
from-
as long.
Yeah, spell is different from Build a Beast, but you know, you do have a point.
I'm certain that was on the whiteboard. That's all I'm saying. And I do think that card had the option, the ability to be a better card. Discover would have made it better. Maybe you could have even done like kind of what Sphere of Sapiens does. I love the idea of make it this card or a mystery spell. This card or what's in the box. But I don't know if they had the tech for that yet, and also it would have been way more work than that card designs, and also you don't ever want that card being good. You really don't want that card being made.
They had the tech for that, right? Because Volpera Scoundrel?
That was 2 sets later. Scoundrel was in Ashes, right?
Oh. Right.
Yeah.
Wait, is Scoundrel still around?
Pretty sure
No,
Volpera Scoundrels.
I thought it rotated.
Volpera
Volpera was
Scoundrel.
definitely
Saviors. Oh, same set. Okay. So
okay.
they did have
yeah.
that tech.
Aha.
Also,
Well-
I still don't know that it would have made it good.
No,
Yeah,
I don't know either. It's just I don't think that that's the card that you want to. I don't think that's where you want to put the power. So I'm not surprised they made it that particular effect less powerful. But yes, it was disappointing
Wait, so
because it seemed.
oh,
like should've been.
Saviors,
Yep.
not Ashes.
Nope, Saviors. I thought that Volpera was an Ashes card. I was wrong.
I was gonna say it wouldn't have mattered how good you made it because if it was in Ashes, the only thing that mattered
Okay,
was
This actually brings me to an interesting point. So I appreciate that Scorpid is better than Volpera. I like having access to a neutral Discover that is good, bad for aggression, but can actually impact the board. It makes it interesting for classes like, say, Demon Hunter, who don't get that much Discover, that you can get it in certain classes. That being said, should it maybe cost 4? Should it be just like a little bit worse? I mean, I guess that's kind of a lot a bit worse, but I find that the poisonous on 3 is just, it can be pretty frustrating.
I'm
The
sure it was a
meta
1-2.
needs the meta needs more
Yeah,
power.
maybe 1-2. Maybe 1-2.
No,
yeah.
print more good
It
cards.
It
Well,
needs
yeah,
to
so-
not.
And that might be the issue. Maybe it's just we need, like, it's good because we have so few cards, and as we get better aggro tools, like, you'll be able to clear a 1-3 poisonous without worrying so much, but
I think it's fine. I think it kind of lets you explore the set a bit, because most of the time you're going to be picking just the clear best card, but every once in a while you're going to get 3 of the fringe cards and one of them's going to work. So it kind of lets you explore the space a bit more. I think it's okay to have something like that, like Scorpid for now.
Well, it's hard to say. This format has a unique problem, which is that it is the smallest standard we have had in a very long time, because they took away over 100 cards from Classic and Basic and haven't replaced them yet because the mini sets haven't come out. And it is very clearly felt with how relevant most of the core set cards are, and how many neutrals that we see all the time, and Scorpid is a big piece of that puzzle, where there aren't enough efficient competitive options to keep us from playing the same cards in most decks. And I don't mind that they put good neutrals in core, and some of them are more specific. You look at Runthak. Cool card. Gonna see some play, but it's not gonna go in every deck. Doesn't go in a lot of decks right now. Goes in a couple. Even Talon, where it just lets your deck do the cool thing that it wants to at the end of the game, and is a decent defensive option. Cool. But then we start looking at your Scorpid is in everything. I mean, it's in a lot of stuff. You could make the argument to include it in Paladin and it would be relevant. They've started cutting it, but you could make the argument to include it, which tells me very clearly there's not enough of a consequence for playing a 3-mana 1/3 on turn 3, because there's no early game to speak of. But I'm kind of over Alex. I'm kind of done with 8 health being dead in this format. I'm not even talking about the combo potential. I'm saying that there are times where, like, I'm at 11 life against a Paladin on turn 7. I'm like, I have lost this game in 2 turns. They will play a Hammer of the Nutter and hit me for 3. I do not have a taunt. I cannot stop it, and then the game is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
just
kind of...
like Leroy, right?
Yep.
It just feels like Leroy.
Leroy with no taunt.
Very telegraphed.
Leroy, you could have taunt and was only 6. I think as weird as it is, if Rogue had Leroy instead of Alex right now, it would be less burst damage.
Huh. That is true. That's a true statement.
And also, you could defend yourself with taunt.
Yeah, but it'd be earlier. You could do it way earlier.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is relevant a lot.
Don't reprint Leroy. Just to be clear.
I mean, yes.
Do not reprint Leroy.
Yeah. Yeah, not an argument for bringing back Leroy, but just although it would be interesting if at some point they put it in the core set. That would be cool if they wanted to do that. It fits the mold, right? It is a legendary with charge, so it's okay. But yeah, I think it's kind of a weird thing that Alex just does a lot of damage, and it does more than Leroy through taunt. The disadvantage being that it costs more, but because we're facing mid-range or whatever instead of aggro, it's just ending a lot of games.
Yeah, it reshapes players' health totals, changes game plans if it's in hand. It's not a bad thing to have something like this around. If it did less damage, fine. But as is, I think it's just a little bit over the line. Now, again, you can do this because the format doesn't have good aggressive options, right? And you can get away with playing a 9-drop. But there will also be a point where you stabilize against aggro, and then you have the board, and then you die to Alex, where we just want that to not be the way it goes. Now, Dean has talked about this on Twitter a few times, but Alex checks a lot of the boxes of something that they want to pull back. Haven't looked at it yet. I think there's a world in which they do, but also I think that a lot of the cards we're talking about in a tiny 4-set meta will not be a thing forever. Question is, when we enter our question and answer section, our roundtable topics, let's start with, we talk about 4-set metas. Remember Ashes of Outland. There was Demon Hunter. There was Risky Skipper Warrior. And there were a bunch of decks that had to figure out, how am I going to fill all these deck slots? We think back before that. What was the 4-set meta before that? Rise of Shadows?
Yeah.
Rogue? Dr. Boom Warrior?
It was Weapon Rogue.
It
right?
was Pirate Aggro with Prep
Pirate
Raiding
Aggro.
Party for free Ancestral Recall.
Yeah.
For Waggle Pick. And then you Waggle Pick your
Mhm.
Leroy. And you Waggle Pick your Life Drinker because we were super degenerate.
Oh my goodness,
There
yeah.
was Elysiana Boom Warrior. When we figured it out, there was Cyclone Mage, and before that there was Book Mage. And
Right.
then there was figure out how to fill these lists out. Play Mech Hunter. Figure out how to fill these lists and get a 4th deck for Conquest. Hunter Race played that awful Control Shaman deck and won Worlds with it. The 4-set meta before that, Witchwood. Well, first they had to nerf all of Kobolds. And then it was, odd and even decks where you didn't have to figure out how to fill the deck because you just pressed the button instead. Are 4-set metas always going to be like this, where there are a couple outliers and the rest of the strategies have to tend towards mid-range because they don't have the cards to go low or high?
It's a possibility.
Funny how much things change, and yet they also seem to kind of stay the same. Because when I first looked at this question, I was going to say it is definitely a possibility, but this team changes. Like, the changes they do have been just so massive over the years, right? Like, there's just been gigantic change after gigantic change, and possibly had the biggest change we've ever had in this 4-set meta.
Yeah.
And yet, as you just said, the result has been fairly similar to
And in a
previous
different
4-set
form,
metas.
right? Like, it takes a
Right.
different form. And we look at Ashes as a 4-set meta. People weren't talking about the mid-range decks. They were talking about
I
the
mean,
new class.
You can't count it. Like, I almost think that period of time doesn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
that was just like that
But-
was the
but
It
Ash's
was
Demon
an
Hunter-
anomaly in Hearthstone.
But Ash's Demon Hunter, how many times did it get nerfed? It was still good. And then look at Paladin. They nerfed it a bunch of times. Still the best deck. Was the best deck by far, the best class by far, the first week. First 2 weeks. Then they nerfed it again. Okay, slightly different Paladin deck. Best deck. Okay, they nerf it again. Alright, let's go back to the first one now. Best deck. It's surprisingly similar, except it's less green and vengeful. Though Reckoning is a pretty vengeful card if you think about it. I think it's actually pretty close. That, like, the power outliers get so exacerbated and exaggerated because you don't have enough other power to compete with them. The one thing that Team 5 really hasn't changed too much is the number of cards that they're willing to have in a 4-set format on a higher end. They're not willing to put more cards in a 4-set format yet. And that might change next year when we have all the mini-sets, when we have 4 mini-sets, that might be different. But there's always been the smallest number in the 4th set, of course, and it's always been a relatively low number, and that means the options we have are limited. I don't know.
I'd be willing to make a bet that come a year from now, that 4-set meta, if anything's gonna break the mold, it'll be that one.
Yeah.
Because we will have an established core set. It will have different cards than this core set, right? Which they can take some knowledge from having done this for a year in terms of what they want to put into that next one. And they can they'll have the benefit of 70 more cards than we currently have. Which I think part of what makes this meta feel so samey and feel like we're just filling out lists is we are minus 70 cards. And previously with Classic Basic, there were just a whole lot of bad cards in Classic Basic, so 4-set metas, even though we had way more cards than we do now, those cards were Classic Basic, and so most of them were not great, with obviously some outliers. But now, having having the core set and having a 4-set meta with 1 mini expansion instead of 3, as we will next year. This is as shallow a pool of cards as we're ever gonna have. So it's still pretty samey. I think that come 4-set meta next year, those 70 new cards that are, not going to be like Classic Basic because they've changed their design philosophy, we may have enough power that it doesn't feel like this.
And also, for what it's worth, maybe it's supposed to feel like this sometimes because there are people that really like this kind of environment. And I do like the play patterns that we have right now. I like how much board matters. I like the back and forth swingy gameplay that we have and how the legendary clears all work. But yeah, maybe it just needs more cards so it stays fresh a little longer, because I don't remember a meta feeling quite so... A new rotation meta feeling quite so disengaging 6 weeks in. And, and I'm still enjoying the games that I play. But yeah, I think you're right that next year has a big opportunity to be different.
It has the opportunity, not necessarily the guarantee that it will be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you can bet on anything. I think, honestly, it's so volatile. Like, the printing of cards is so volatile. I mean, just look at whenever anybody does a card review ever, how many cards they're off. Like, these are people with thousands and thousands of hours of experience playing cards, a lot of them at the highest level. Like, if you look at the reviews from pros, they're off consistently. Like, obviously the Team 5 has testers, but like, it's just, you can't predict what's going to happen. And I feel like as easily as Paladin got nerfed and did not move down many places, it easily also could have gotten nerfed and then been close to non-existent. Like, a number here or there could have taken Paladin's relevancy from the most, the winningest deck to Shaman, where Shaman's at right now. It's just it's so hard to tell. I mean, balance is just an incredibly difficult thing to do. And so, yeah, I mean, who knows, right? Like, they also could have made a change and everything would have been in line. We're dealing with numbers that are so, you can't really adjust like a tenth of a number on a card, right? Yeah. The majority of Hearthstone cards are single digit, and you just don't have the option to nudge a card by half a number. It's like the swings that you have to take whenever you touch a card are just too big. So it's I feel like it has the potential to be good next time, and also has the potential to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, okay,
hopefully they learn every time. I mean,
was this a bad meta?
I would say no. I think this was a good meta for me. I mean, I'm not as engaged as I have been in the past, but I think I enjoyed my time. I played a variety of different decks. A lot of them felt good. Obviously, I don't think that maybe they competed on the same level as Paladin necessarily, even though I obviously played a lot of Paladin as well. But I mean, it's possible that it's just because Demon Hunter was the new class and it was doing things that I didn't enjoy, but this didn't feel anywhere close to as bad as the day one Demon Hunter meta felt, or even just the first month of Demon Hunter.
Well, the play rate was so much lower. The play rate on day one was over half of the games logged were Demon Hunter. Like, that, nothing got anywhere close to that. I think Lunacy Mage the first 2 weeks, which was not even the best deck, was the most popular, because everyone knew after about a day and a half that, like, all right, this is changing, we better get it in while we can.
Well, I mean, even with this meta, like Paladin was the best deck by a wide margin, and Spell Mage was it more popular?
It was.
Like it was
by
more played,
miles.
right?
Yeah, way more played.
I mean,
So,
because
like-
Spell Mage had that sweet spot of like powerful and fun, and people who had been trying to make it work for a while because Spell Mage was a cool thing were excited that it was finally good. There were all kinds of reasons people were playing Spell Mage, and it was popular. Obviously, Demon Hunter had the whole new class thing going for it, in addition to being completely busted. But yeah, I think the outcry against Paladin was less, as had a saying, because it was the best deck, but it wasn't the most popular.
That was honestly my biggest problem with the other 4-set meta, is that not only was Demon Hunter just so much vastly more powerful than anything, it felt like you couldn't play the game for a period of time without getting Demon Hunter drawed, or whatever you want to call it. Like you would just get greened and you were dead.
It's thank goodness for Enrage Warrior, because that was what made that meta fun for me, is learning red combo priest, which was very enjoyable to play. But yeah, sometimes you would just die, and also the number of games where, you heard altruists and then bad things happened. It was a traumatic time. Yeah, I agree that I think this was a good meta, but it was never going to be one with a long shelf life. And they did the combination of core and barons. Maybe the neutrals came in a little hot. Maybe that's the thing, is that the neutrals were a little bit higher power than they needed to be. But it's been a while since we've had good neutrals, and so it's again, none of these things.
Zephyrus.
Yeah, well, that's not a card you just put in every deck. You're not going to see Venomous Scorpion and Zephyrus at the same play rate. I understand people's disillusionment with this meta so far. I have enjoyed the games I've played a lot, but there's definitely not as much depth and not as many options. And while it feels refreshing coming after Year of the Dragon's rotation, need more stuff. Need more stuff to do. And I miss Zeus so much. And I miss just playing like actual aggro decks.
I miss Zoo quite a bit. Actual aggro in general. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I for sure wouldn't say that it is a bad meta. We've obviously had worse, but I think ultimately, there are those of us that don't really like things the way they are, and if you're feeling that way, play other things for now.
Yeah.
Because the discussion within my team is primarily around we're really tired of Priest. That is an outlier because, we're facing more Priest than a lot of other people, and we're facing pretty good Priests. Priests that know what they're doing.
If you're in top 500, there's a lot more Priest, and if you're playing Qualifiers, there's a ton of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we are not as upset about Paladin, and that's like the best deck. But I don't know. It feels more manageable, and I think it's just gonna be a different experience depending on where you are on the ladder, what your goals are in terms of playing the game, how competitive you are. And ultimately, like, if you're not enjoying it, especially now that we know we're getting the mini set, just take a break.
Yeah.
I dipped into Wild a bit myself, just for a moment. I was feeling somewhat evil, so I played like 2 games of Res Priest, and then that was enough for me. And then I went and played some APM Mage. I was experimenting, and then I started playing like Odd Hunter, which was terrible, but it was enjoyable. Tried to do like a Cube Hunter because I kind of missed that with the recruit stuff and the big charging dinosaurs. So there's plenty of ways to enjoy the game. Maybe just play BGs for now or something. But
Alternatively, Standard, I think, has been enjoyable directly proportional to how much you like playing Rogue. Because that deck is fun, and it's
Rogue
good.
is pretty sweet. It's the deck that it's got a chance against the field, right?
And the gameplay's dynamic. You have a general framework for what you want to do, but that's the gameplay that we don't really have a lot of left over from Dragon Standard, is I have rough key turns where I know I'm going to do something goofy that will roughly involve the same cards, and the stuff that happens in the middle is going to be different every time. The cards I draw from my field contact, what I hit off my Wand Thief or Secret Passage or whatever, is going to change how I play out this game. And we don't have quite as much dynamic gameplay in this meta, outside of when did I hit my wife or whatever. No, gosh, I don't like that phrasing. When did I draw Olgra? I'm gonna mark that down. You all knew what I meant there, but when did I draw my Olgra? We're gonna edit that one in post. I'm glad I caught that. That would have been bad if that went out. Yes. I'm marking that down a lot. So, outside of when did I draw my Olgra, you kind of have these prescriptive game plans, and Talon kind of exacerbates that because it always hits Alex, unless you're hitting Illidar Inquisitor specifically. So you're doing the same thing in order every game, and I think that there's opportunity for more cards to do things differently. I'm looking forward to that. But if I talk about something I really like in this meta, beyond what we've talked about multiple shows in a row, where I do think this was a return to board-based combat. I do think that there are swing turns that don't lose you the game immediately, but are cool and flashy and only happen once a game unless they're discovered soul mirrors. It's... I forgot what my train of thought was. What was I saying? Board clears. Trying to retrace what I was saying. I completely lost it mid-sentence.
Rogue is dynamic and fun.
No, after that. After the Alex stuff. After the more cards, board-based. I don't remember. I'm going to edit this too.
But
We're going to edit this whole
there's so much stuff you can do in Rogue that you don't even remember it all.
Yeah, even though the deck list is exactly the same 30 cards.
It doesn't feel samey the way that a lot of other things do. Even if you are maybe ending it with Alex a lot of the time. A lot of times you step Jandis. A lot of times you step Vanessa, get something cool. Glee had a fantastic Miracle Rogue win against Poison Rogue, and this was truly justice. They played Cloak of Shadows. And it was the last card they played on their turn.
Ooh.
So he played Vanessa, Cloak, Step Vanessa, Replay, and opponent conceded.
That's hot. Also,
fantastic.
The one thing I will say that I love about Paladin being too good is that Weapon Rogue's win rate has gone off the side of a cliff.
Pretty great.
Yeah. You want to talk about the inverse of Miracle Rogue being dynamic and different every game? Poison Rogue is the opposite of that. It is the exact same every single game, unless you don't draw a weapon, which is also the exact same every game because you just die.
Yeah.
You lose those games. You either play a weapon on 3 and you play cards and click your button in the same spot every turn, or you die.
So as I go to think about winding down this section here, my final thought on Barrens is, I expect 2-3 years down the line, when people go to make their tier list of expansions, they will forget that this meta existed. Or maybe they will remember the first couple weeks. I don't think it is the best we ever had. I don't think it's the worst we ever had. I think it is one of the least memorable metas I can think of. I don't know what people will point back to here, other than Paladin, the 2 weeks of Lunacy Mage, and just playing good neutrals. Crab Rider, I guess.
Everybody's going to point to, hey, we got that new course set back then. What were we playing? What happened?
Yeah.
The course set was cool, but I don't
Alex
remember.
Was cool.
Yeah,
Taylor was great.
Oh, yeah. Alex might have been a little too good.
Oh, yeah. What was the meta like when the core set came out? Well, we had a 3-mana 1/3 that was just really good. Venomous Scorpion. Not even in the core set. I'm going to look back, and people will look at Venomous Scorpion and be like, huh, that was a meta card.
You know what I'm hoping it'll be like? I'm hoping it'll be kind of like, so the first movie in the Thor trilogy, it's like fine. It's sort of the 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was like pretty good. But when you compare it to everything else, there were much worse Marvel movies
Like Thor 2,
in that MCU. Yeah, like Thor 2.
which was horrendous.
But
and Thor 3
and
was
there
amazing.
There were much better ones. Yeah, like Ragnarok. Ragnarok is insane. It's many people's favorite, I think. The comedy is fantastic. And Thor 1 was like, it was towards the beginning. So there's kind of that nostalgia of like, oh yeah, Thor. You know, I liked Thor. It was good. We were just getting into the MCU then. Again, reduced pool. But like, most of Phase 1 MCU they don't hold up to the other phases. The other phases just like blow them out of the water. So I think that, yeah, my hope is that we'll be able to look back on this and like, this meta's a 5, right? It's not the worst. It's not amazingly great. But yeah, I think it'll be sort of fine.
Yep. This expansion is the exposition movie. That we're going to explain all the things like the backstory, the origin story. We're going to do that. Yeah, I think we can leave it there. So, thank you everyone for tuning into our Feelings episode. We have many folks to like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coincade.com. You can find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show, patreon.com/coincade. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch, twitch.coincade.com. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coincade.com. Write into our email at coincade@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coincade. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coincade. It's like some CC swag. Head over to our shop at shop.coincade.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Tenor Wizard, Doge, DK, Proby1, Dr. Fish, Crash Cap, B-Squatch, David, P, Snowpack, Antero, Lucky, Fade to Black, and Waloo. Also, big thanks to Boyd for the raid, Proby1 for the amazing 10 subs, you're the best, Baximus and Noodle Swoop for their subs as well. Who's got some coin conceits? Edelweiss. Roboticus.
I will coin concede to my 2 coaching sessions over the weekend to Buse and Pi. Had some fun Miracle Rogue games where we got to go face a lot and got to explain why you just try to kill your opponent at all points and periods in time that you possibly can. And also some Control Priest, where I was kind of leaning more towards the Corrupt Priest being something more that I was interested in practicing, but we did pretty well with Control Priest. Although we did play against that 4-drop that I think Edelweiss was talking about earlier, 4-mana 5/5.
South Sea Scoundrel.
Yeah, I thought that was just to beat the mirror or something, and so I figured people weren't really playing it, but then I've played against it multiple times, and it's annoying.
It's in the Vicious Syndicate Dissolve Priest list that was published today, so you're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah, it beats the mirror pretty handily because you just fatigue out really fast and die.
And also burn cards, usually.
And it's a good hit off Nazar.
Oh, so it's Mill Priest. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Blister Guy, we're now playing Mill Priest.
Wouldn't go that far.
And also,
I'm specifically calling out Blister Guy because he doesn't like the idea of Mill Rogue.
So anyways, there's also a cool play that you can make that's often quite powerful in the mirror of, on 10 mana, you Southsea for their Elucia, you make a copy of it, you Lucy, and then you use their Lucy back so they don't get to Lucy you all game. It's a double swap.
Very cool. And also, oh god,
Exactly. Correct response. Edelweiss, what are your coin concedes?
So my coin concedes this week, I feel like, have to go out to Deck Tech, who did that interview with me, even though obviously we had the interview a while back. Finally came out today, so I can talk about it. He was really great with the questions. Nothing really felt too invasive, and he was very clear that if I wanted anything edited out, we could do that. So I really appreciated that. And then just the community management team over at Hearthstone. It feels great to be given this kind of opportunity, and I'm glad that they really have taken things seriously this time. So, more good things to come, I think, and looking forward to just the continuation of Hearthstone stuff over this year, because I think the game's just gonna get better, and I think the content's just gonna get better. So I'm looking forward to that.
I would like to coin concede to my wife. So raw audio listeners, you'll get it. Process listeners, I made a statement that of using common Hearthstone vernacular that makes sense in context, but maybe didn't come across the best way. I just want to make sure my wife knows that I love her and will always treat her with respect. Also, coin concede to Olgra. I don't love you, Olgra, but the respect thing still goes with that. Yeah. Also, coin concede to Madras Lover and Bruised Elbow, both very, and Itinerant Wizard for being very flexible and pleasant about my week falling apart completely and needing to move coaching sessions around. Coin concede to anyone, if you're going through a tough time right now, I see you, and I appreciate you. For those of you, we said this a lot during the meat of the pandemic last year, because I hope it's winding down now. Anyone that needs to take a step back from the show's Patreon contributions, we're not in this for the money. We're in this for you, for the listeners, to make content for you and to connect with you. And if anyone needs to take a step back from the Patreon, we will keep your benefits going. Keep sending you that coaching form and whatever you get until you can get back on your feet, because it's more about the community than it is about the money. So, anyone that's out there that's struggling, we really hope things get better, and we're here for you. So, keep calm, and we'll see you in the Wailing Caverns. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.